Hi, folks, and welcome to the beginning of Business 508 here at Columbia College. Thanks for joining me. Glad to have you. And just a little tutorial here, a quick one to get us started this week. The first 4 weeks of the course, we're going to use an add-in to Excel called Solver that's going to help us get through some of the linear programming work that we're going to take care of over these first 4 weeks. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to enable Solver enable the solver that's inherent within Excel. And this is, in the book, as you go through the readings, you'll hear a lot about Analytical Solver Platform for Education. That is the one that's adopted in the book. The reason we're using the solver that's in Excel is it saves you the cost of purchasing that, and we'll get the same results out of the Excel solver that we would have out of Analytical Solver Platform for Education. So we're just going to use that here for the first 4 weeks. The first thing that you want to do in order to get started here, now let me say that I'm recording this video using my desktop PC. So if you're using a Mac, my hope is that you're seeing the exact same thing that I am, only, of course, only you're seeing it on your Mac. So hopefully these are the same steps. So let's go up here to the File button or the File option on your ribbon, and let's go down to Options. And down here at the very bottom of this window, let me pull this up here so it's all visible. Let's click on Add-ins, and down here at the very bottom, next to this tag called Manage, there's a drop-down, and let's make sure we click on the Excel add-ins. If you hit Go, what you'll see is you'll get the add-ins pop-up window here. For this first 4 weeks, the option you want to make sure that you have checked is the Solver add-in, and that will give you Solver. What you see here is I have the Analysis Tool Pack also checked, and that's when we get into week 5 and we start working in regression, we're going to want the Analysis Tool Pack. You can, if you want, you can click this option right now as well, and that way you've got the regression template. It will be available to you when we begin week 5, and you'll be ready to go. So if I click OK and then go up, let me go up to the Data tab. I just want to start this from scratch here. Click on the Data tab and then go over here to the right, and you'll see 2 options that have been enabled. The Solver, which we need for the first 4 weeks, and then within the Data Analysis, we can get to the regression template that we need for week 5. And so as you get started this week, there's some questions associated with a problem in the textbook, and this is really just a warm-up so that folks are clear on how to use Solver, and it's a very simple exercise, just a little bit of math that I've asked you to do here to kind of knock off the rust in that respect, and then also to get acquainted with Solver. So in this original problem, this is the way that it's set up to match the problem that's in the book. Actually, it's explained to you here in the Instructions tab. But if I go back to this original problem, let me just give you a couple quick tips on how to use Solver, and I hope this will help you as you get going this week. So again, this is really just the framework of the problem that's in the book. All of these costs are given to you. There's a list of capacities, which are really the constraints or the associated values or the maximum values that these machines can make during the week, and so on and so forth. And then the method in which we include the fixed costs if we use a machine. So if I go up to Solver, you're going to see that I've already got the necessary inputs in here to solve this model. And actually, let me just clear this, and I'm going to show you how to add them. And that way, this is should be pretty straightforward. So if I just let's see, if I reset everything here, the first thing we want to do is we want to tell Solver which cell in the model will be our objective function. And in this case, it's cell D20. So as long as I have my cursor in this window, if I simply click on D20, it just loads D20 as my objective cell, and that's great. Now, the next thing we're going to look for here is, first of all, let me say, in this case, what we want to do regarding the objective function, actually, we want to minimize total cost. So we don't want to maximize what we want to minimize. So if you just click on the radio button for minimize, you'll be all set and ready to go there. Next thing you're being asked for is essentially what we're asked for in this block is where are the decision variables in the spreadsheet. So my decision variables here, the quantities that I'm going to make of each one of these machines that I'm using to make the required number of, I believe we're making brake shoes or something along that line. So The easiest way to do this is if I simply click in cell E9 and I drag it, hold the left mouse and drag it all the way down, it loads the decision variables E9 through E14. And as we talked about the optimal solution of a linear programming model, the optimal solution is right here. It's the values of your decision variables. It's common for folks to think that the value of the objective function is the optimal solution. That's not. It's simply the value of the objective function once you find the values of the decision variables, which is your optimal solution. And so we can we can just click out of there. Actually, I made a mistake here. Let me do that again. So E9 through E14, and then we're all set. Now, there's 3 constraints here. The first one is that we're required to make 1,800 brake shoes, I believe. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add that constraint, and we're going to say that the number that I need to make, which is cell E16, is equal to 1,800. Now, let's just click the cell reference, and you'll see that pop up as a cell reference, and we'll add that first constraint, and we're good there. The next constraint is that there's a capacity on each one of these machines, and for instance, cell E9, which represents the quantity made for machine 1, must be less than 500, and so on and so forth as you go down the line. The easy way, the real slick way to do this, to add the constraint, is to go here and hit the add button, and we want to say that all of these cells, E9 through E14, must be less than or equal to the corresponding values in cell D9 through D14. So essentially what you did in those 2 keystrokes is you added 5 constraints. This value less than this value less than this value, and so on and so forth. Actually 6 constraints. So if I hit OK, I'm all squared away there. And then the final constraint that we have is the non-negativity constraint, meaning that all the decision variables here must be greater than or equal to 0. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. You see this little checkbox here that says make unconstrained variables non-negative. You can do that, but it's typically a good habit to just add a constraint and say the decision variables all must be greater than or equal to 0, and then we're okay. And then the final step, once you've added all the constraints, you hit solve, and you will see that we have, first of all, that we have satisfied all constraints, that the numbers made by each one of these machines is less than or equal to their capacity, and that we've made a number of brake shoes that is required by the problem, and there is your total cost. The one thing, let me go back here. One thing I do want to say that I forgot to mention. The other thing that you need to be sure of when you set up your solver, for this week only, please make sure that of the 3 options you have here, choose the non-linear solver. And the only reason we're doing that this week is because Excel does not like the way the objective function is calculated here. It's calculated as the sum of these 2. It's calculated in the spreadsheet as the sum of the fixed and variable costs. And Excel, for some reason, doesn't like that, and it'll only solve these problems, these 3 problems that you're going to solve using the nonlinear solver. So make sure you use that when you finish up these problems, and there shouldn't be any issue. Again, there's just a couple little math steps here, and if necessary, I can throw some hints on the discussion board. But I think these are pretty straightforward, and I think you'll have a little fun with this week. So again, if there's, I hope this is helpful. And if there's anything I can do for you, please let me know, and let's have a great week and get off on the right foot. Take care, and I will talk to you on the discussion board.